Hello everybody, my name is Sheila SL Reads, and today I'm going to be talking about my 5 worst reads of 2017. Sorry for the pessimism, and don't worry, you will be seeing my 5 best reads of 2017 in the next video. This is just the easiest one for me to shoot right now. As you can see, I'm in a different space. I'm currently in my house because I had an emergency appendectomy over the weekend, so I'm currently recovering back home and I'm not at school. A few of the books that have been my favorite reads of the year are at school, and so I have to do that video there because I don't even have those books with me. I did read a lot of great books in 2017 and a lot of mediocre ones, but there were a few that I was just like really mad about, like rageful, like I wanted to throw it against the wall, but I didn't. Somehow. These are in no particular order. There is no, this is the worst book that I read this year. A lot of them just made me angry, and so those are the ones I'm going to be talking about today. I apologize because I know a lot of these books are actually pretty popular and this is going to be pretty controversial, so I apologize in advance for that. The first book on my list of worst reads of 2017 is The Winner's Kiss by Marie Rutkowski. The way that it is advertised is, here's this girl named Kestrel, which is a kind of bird apparently, and she makes this rash, impulsive decision that binds some guy to her, and it's very romantic and everything, but I was absolutely disgusted by this book because the thing that she does that binds him to her, spoiler alert, is that she buys him. He's literally a slave, and he ends up leading a rebellion, and by the end of this book I can definitely see why people would want to read more because I was captivated by it and I really wanted to read more because I was so irritated with what was going on. I hated this world. It is a world in which women are expected to fight alongside men, but somehow they are still seen as the weaker sex. Our main character, Kestrel, is the daughter of General Trajan, who by the way is a real person from history. General Trajan's Forum, Trajan's Column, everything. He exists, and I think he'd be very disappointed in this book as well. I really hated the fact that they still somehow made it seem like women needed to be protected and that women were the weaker sex, even while making them fight alongside men. They had them fighting in the wars, and she didn't want to fight in the war because she wanted to play piano or something weird like that. I really could not get past that slavery aspect of it, and it is something that is introduced way early on in the book, so it's not like you can even be like, oh, you didn't know what was going on for a while. Like, you did. And this is a very popular book, and part of me really wanted to enjoy it because it was such a popular book, and I'd heard so much about Kestrel and whatever the hell the guy's name is, Aaron. I ended up reading the wiki for it just to figure out what happens because I'm not finishing this series at all. I was disgusted by this, and it makes me really irritated that this is something that's seen as okay in YA. It's like, yeah, slavery happened, and it wasn't okay, so don't make books romanticizing it. I had to write a paper about the next book, and I wrote it so well, and with so many great sources in it and everything, that everybody was like, Sheila, I want to read this book. It makes me really want to read this. I was like, fuck, no you don't. This book sucks. The book in question is This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is a semi-autobiographical novel about F. Scott Fitzgerald, and oh my god, he is so irritating. I hated this book so much. Like, obviously, when you're reading classical novels, they're not going to be similar to YA novels, which are the majority of books that I read, but this is something that is so... oh, it was so irritating. I don't even know how to get the words out. I literally wrote a paper about this, and some of the articles in that paper had some pretty funny names, and so that's the only way that I got through this project. This book was a lot about how F. Scott Fitzgerald has a bunch of failed relationships because he is the most irritating, disappointing, boring person alive. The main part of this book is all of his failed relationships and how he doesn't understand how they failed because, like, I mean, he was the best person ever that these women could have ended up with. Like, no, you're not. You're really annoying. I can kind of see why Zelda and you had so many issues. It's like a very, very, very annoying version of Catcher in the Rye, where, like, there's this person who goes to this prep school and then he ends up in, like, New York City, and it's like... don't you have other things to be doing with your life? Like, he goes to war, and that's not even a big part of the book. He just drinks, and he doesn't have any money, and he's somehow still rich, but I don't understand anything that happened in this book. I finished this in a car ride home from Iowa, and I almost threw myself and this book out of the moving car. The next book is something that I made a video about. It was the first video I ever made, because I was so irritated about this that I decided to start a booktube channel, so I guess I can thank it for giving me the incentive to finally start making booktube videos, because I am really liking it. But that book is Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. If you look behind me, this entire shelf is Cassandra Clare novels. I have the Infernal Devices, I have the Infernal Devices graphic novels, which by the way, are awful. Don't get them. I hope that the new City of Bones graphic novel is good. Kinda want to get it, but I'm really nervous because this kinda just ruined graphic novels for me for a bit. I have the entire Mortal Instruments series. I have the Bane Chronicles, Tales from Shadowhunter Academy, and then here's where we get to the Dark Artifices. I enjoyed Lady Midnight. I am not the biggest fan of Jules or Emma. You can definitely watch my spoiler-filled review. It is the first video on this channel, very easy to find. When I got to this book, oh my god, this book is humongous, and it really just seems like lots of authors in YA nowadays are just writing these huge ass books because they're like, hey, I'm a very famous author. I can get a lot of money for this book, and I'm just gonna write about nothing. Because this book was so convoluted and annoying, and I hated it so much. I thought this book was completely confusing. There are a lot of perspective shifts in it, and I know that lots of people said that was something that they liked about this book. Lots of booktubers, lots of people in general love this book. Cassandra Clare is someone who is very hard to go up against. I have really liked lots of her series. I didn't really like the Infernal Devices that much, but I never hated them to this extent. I just feel like this is a waste of trees and paper. I don't even know how to get into it. I think I like locked my feelings for this in like a room in my brain and just like have not gone in there since because it was a mess to film that review and edit it and everything. I do not like the main characters in this story, and they are not something that was keeping me reading. The things that were keeping me reading ended up getting destroyed in this book, and there were just pointless deaths and pointless relationships started, love triangles, things that would make sense for a newer writer, not someone with as many books on her belt as Cassandra Clare. Like, she has written so many books in general, including in this series, and it just seems like this is not a book that should come from such a seasoned writer. I might read the thing that's supposed to come out about Magnus and Alec just because I like them and because I like the LGBT rep, but like, I cannot continue with this series or with the main series timeline. I'm pretty sure that there's only one book on this list that I don't hate, and it is not this one. So this book is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I was so disappointed in this book. It was awful. This is another one of the books that so many people liked. This was something that I picked up because I saw that lots of booktubers liked it. Haley in Bookland enjoyed it a lot, and I trust her opinion, obviously, since I talk about her in so many of my videos. But this book, I will not say that I am a fantastic writer or anything. I could definitely write something better than this, with better characters, better storylines. This was just disappointing. It was overhyped, and it did not live up to the hype at all. I thought that this book was going to be a lot like The Night Circus, which is one of my favorite novels, and it was not. The magical element to it was completely lacking. There was just so much confusion in this novel, and the things that people liked about it, I didn't even see how they got that from this book. I was like, did we even read the same book? Lots of people say that there's a strong sisterly aspect to this, where there's a strong sister bond, and there is not. There is nothing close to that. This book has two sisters, and that's pretty much as close as you can get to that statement. It is not just like the whole thing where sisters love each other, but they're so mean because they're girls and they're battling, and like girls are always against each other. That's fucking dumb. If you write characters like that, grow up, get into the 21st century. That's not what life is really like. The main character of this book was Scarlet, and yes, her entire storyline was driven by the fact that she wanted to find her sister, but she was also mad at her sister every single time when they interacted. They were yelling at each other and just being overall incredibly bitchy and just like unnecessary, and that was supposed to be one of the biggest things about this, and I was like, I don't even see how anybody got that from this book. Beyond that, the relationship aspect of this was very dumb, because it was mostly Scarlet looking at her sister and being like, you can't love a man that you've only known for 5 days, after she did the exact same thing. All the plot points in this, it was like, they were not fleshed out enough, and they were not interesting enough to like captivate me. I finished this and I was so mad by the end of this. My mother listens to me rant about a lot of books and usually does not retain the title of it because I'm too busy like screaming about books, but this one she remembers, and that says a lot. The final book in my list of worst reads of 2017 is not a book that I hated, it was just a book that I was very disappointed by, and I wrote a review on Goodreads for it that I will link down below. I really wanted to like this book, probably more than I wanted to like any of the other books in this pile. That book is The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. I read the Six of Crows duology and realized that I love duologies, first of all. Not only do I just love the Six of Crows duology, but I feel like duologies are a perfect format because you can't really mess that much stuff up in 2 books. Somehow, Leigh Bardugo messed up a lot of stuff in 1 book. I have seen other reviewers and booktubers talking about how Six of Crows is more elevated in its writing and its characters and just its development in general, and that shows that authors can improve over time. But also, I just feel like there's so much hype around that book series and I don't really understand it. That made me a little nervous about picking up this book, and my nerves were sound. I feel like Leigh Bardugo did so well with the Six of Crows duology and then just kind of regressed in the quality of her work for this compilation. As a series of fairy tales, these are the fairy tales that the people in the Grisha universe would have heard when they were growing up. It's the Cinderella and Beauty of the Beast of the Grisha universe. And what really annoyed me about these fairy tales is that instead of coming up with new fairy tales, Leigh Bardugo just tried to put a Grisha twist onto fairy tales from the real world. In my very lengthy Goodreads review, I talked about the similarities with each fairy tale and fairy tales in the real world. There was one that was similar to Beauty and the Beast and Shrek and the Minotaur all in one, and it was like she was splicing together these different stories and trying to make her own instead of just starting from somewhere new. And the thing is that these are all very like westernized stories. The most popular fairy tales today are most of the ones that have European origin, and Leigh Bardugo did not even seem to research the fairy tales of other places that her different lands within the Grisha universe are based off of. Like, there's a whole map inside Six of Crows and it shows the different lands. It's essentially like an entire Earth but just different continents. If she's basing this one continent off of Asia, perhaps if she had researched more about Asian myths or fairy tales, legends, something like that, and tried to make her own or base them off of that, it would be more authentic. I saw so many people praising her for being such a great storyteller, but really it was as if she was just retelling other stories. Retellings are such a big thing in the YA book community right now, and I am not a big fan of them, but it's not like I'm against reading them. This, I didn't think that it was going to be retellings. Like, it made it seem as if it was going to be this new thing. I just feel very let down by this book. I thought it was going to be great and very unique and genuine and just really thought out, and I feel like it just really wasn't. It just really let me down. It's beautiful. I want to love it. It has beautiful illustrations and everything, and even my favorite story inside of it was not even that great. I just felt like I had to pick a favorite, and I just picked the one with mermaids because I love mermaids. So that is the end of my worst reads of 2017 video. Please let me know down below what books you were really excited for this year and felt were letdowns, or just if you want to talk about something better, just talk about any books that you read this year. I definitely do not want to start any arguments in the comments with the viewpoints that I expressed in this video. These are just my own opinions, and lots of times I get very heated about these books because I love books and I want them to be good and I want my reading experience to be good. And if you like these books, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your reading taste or with your opinions. I just noticed that a lot of people did like the books that I didn't like, and part of me is really curious why. If you can relate to this at all, please let me know. The next video that you see will be my favorite reads of 2017, which was actually kind of hard to narrow down because I did read a lot of good books this year. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!